Of the government and bureaucrats to pay tribute to the late president. We'll keep getting you live pictures from the Palam airport and later from President Kalam's official residence. A short break here. We'll be back in just a bit. State honours for former President Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam at Delhi airport after his mortal remains arrived there from Shillong. His last rites will be conducted in Rameswaram tomorrow. President Pranab Mukherjee, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Vice President Hamid Ansari, the three service chiefs, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar and top dignitaries from the Delhi government including Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal and his deputy Manish Sisodia paid tribute to Dr. Kalam at the airport. His body is now being transferred to a carriage. It will now be taken to his official residence on 10 Rajaji Marg. An extremely somber mood there at the Palam airport in the capital. President Kalam's body there arrived in a special IAF chopper. His mortal remains were accompanied by the governor of Meghalaya. His body was received at the airport by the three chiefs of defence services. We saw a tri-services guard of honour was laid out for the 11th president, led by President Pranab Mukherjee. Maha Siddiqui is with us live. She's outside 10 Rajaji. She's outside. She's on Rajaji Marg outside Kalam's official residence. Maha, the body now being shifted from the Palam airport to 10 Rajaji Marg. Describe to us the arrangements that you're seeing around you. And apart from dignitaries, are we also expecting people, common citizens, to turn up to pay homage to the late president?
Well, absolutely. He was known as the people's president, and that is the reason. And anticipating a lot of general public to come and pay their last respects today to Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. A separate gate has been made specially for the general public to queue up and get inside, apart from the main gate from where the dignitaries will be going. Now, my cameraman will quickly pan to the other side now, which is the gate of 10 Rajaji Marg, the official residence of the former president, the late president Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, which he occupied after demitting office and after ceasing to be the president of the country. This is where he lived. And as you can see, the armed forces, the military that has taken over all the arrangements here are now getting ready, as message has been sent to them that the mortal remains are reaching here any moment now. They have moved out of Palam Technical, where a lot of the last respects were paid by the three chiefs, as well as the Prime Minister over there, the Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar. You can, in these visuals here, which my cameraman is showing you, the military personnel here making all the arrangements for the dignitaries to go inside and pay their last respects. What we have been told, Simi, is that the room where his mortal remains will be kept is not very huge. It can accommodate about 25 people at one point in time, and therefore this has to be done in a very meticulous and an organized fashion, where people will be allowed inside one at a time, so that there is no confusion and chaos at this really somber moment.
Right, so special arrangements have been made there at 10 Rajaji Marg to ensure the proceedings go off smoothly. Top dignitaries of the government, along with citizens of the public, common citizens, are expected to pay tribute to the late president. His body has now moved out of the Palam technical area and is on its way to Kalam's official residence on 10 Rajaji Marg. Maha, take us through any diversions, if any, that have been put in place. Have barricades also been placed around 10 Rajaji Marg? How easy or difficult will it be for common people who want to pay tribute to the late president to reach there?
It won't be very difficult, Simi, because it's only the stretch of the road that is Rajaji Marg from where the DRDO starts to the end of the road that has been blocked. So it is very easy for people to get off just right behind South Block and walk it down. It's certainly not difficult, because all the people who've made arrangements here, the police, when we spoke to them in the morning, they said that they do realize that former President APJ Abdul Kalam was hugely popular with the common man, and they are expecting a large number of people to come here, and that is why they are not creating any hurdles for people to reach 10 Rajaji Marg. Let me also quickly update our viewers, Simi, that the timings for the common people, the general public, to come and pay their last respects, their homage to Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, has now been changed from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. The other bit of update that is also coming is that apart from the Lok Sabha, even the Rajya Sabha session for tomorrow has been cancelled, so that the members can attend the funeral of the late president.
All right, Maha telling us that the special parliament sessions have also been cancelled to allow parliamentarians to travel to Rameshwaram to attend President Kalam's funeral. We have Professor N. Balakrishnan on the phone line with us. He's someone who was Dr. Kalam's close friend and confidant. Let's get a word from Professor Balakrishnan. A state funeral for the late president, extremely somber mood there. Professor Balakrishnan, if you could share a few stories about the late president with us. He's someone who's known to be an extremely warm and friendly person, an extraordinary human being, and somebody who is a brilliant scientist, but still, in spite of being so celebrated around the world, someone who is extremely humble.
Yes. One of the things is that I've known him for about 35 years. I've had an opportunity to work with him very closely on several technical issues that have been daunting the nation. At the same time, he was also a personal friend, and he's more like a mother and a father and a mentor rolled into one, as far as I'm concerned. He was there for me, be it my son's wedding or my granddaughter's birth, or my granddaughter's first year, or a few days back my own felicitation function on the eve of my retirement. But one of the nicest things about him is there are about 1 billion people who feel the same way as I do, that they are also equally close to him, and I mean, which may be perfectly true as well. And he cares for you, because every day I used to talk to him in the night, and the first question that he'll ask me is, have you eaten? All the other technical things come later. I think a person who cares for you, and he's been extremely close to all my students. He used to talk to them technical stuff. His versatility is something amazing. I think it's going to take several generations before God could create another one like him.
Absolutely right. And Professor Balakrishnan, it's interesting that you point out that fact that he added a personal touch to every conversation with everyone. We've been speaking to lots of people, including journalists, and everyone who's interacted with him over the last few years said that he'd always care for you. He'd ask you if you are comfortable and ensure that you don't feel awkward or left out. And this is something that we saw in his interactions with children as well. While Dr. Kalam was at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, the President's house had actually thrown its gates open for children. There were several interactions that had been organized with the President as well. Dr. Kalam obviously enjoyed the company of children and loved to interact with them.
That's correct. And more importantly, he became one amongst them. And even otherwise, when you move with him, you know his two things that come out is innocence and extremely great sincerity. I think to roll both of them into one and still be extremely alert intellectually, I think it's going to be a rare combination.
And you know, Professor Balakrishnan, I also want to ask you, as you rightly pointed out, this is something that we've also been talking about, that Dr. Kalam had attended your felicitation after your retirement. He'd attended functions for your children as well. I want to know if he'd been keeping unwell over the last couple of months.
Not at all, but actually I must correct, he attended all the functions of my children and so on, but my felicitation, was held on the 25th of July. So he sent it by the video.
Okay.
And so the video he gave on this thing, and then but did speak to me from Shillong on the 27th and on the 26th as well. I mean 25th and 26th as well. And there was not even the call that I received from him on Sunday night was at 12 o'clock in the night, and not even an iota of this thing. I must tell you a personal note. When we attended the 80th birthday of one of his friends, he told me that he promised me that he will come for my 80th birthday, though with 3 legs, or though in 3 legs. So I'm going to miss that, and it's extremely difficult to express what it means to anyone. For someone to tell you that I'll be there for your 80th birthday is not a ordinary. I mean, it comes spontaneously from him. I don't think it is enacted at any point of time.
Right. And Professor Balakrishnan, would you also want to share some personal anecdotes with us about Dr. Kalam's, when he was in office? Were there issues that troubled him? What were his top concerns? We do know that he played a crucial role in India's nuclear program and the modernization of the defense services, but were there other issues as far as the society were concerned that troubled him, something that he wanted to do?
I doubt very much that at any point of time he had ever looked at anything that has troubled him. Even an elephant comes chasing him, I think he would know, he would stay calm and the elephant would stop. So he had that kind of a personality. And if you look at, this is something I would throw a challenge to anyone who knows about speeches. I mean, you're a journalist. If you look at all his speeches, you will never find a negative sentence in that. He will not say he has not done this. That not is a word you will rarely find in his dictionary. And so he was positive about everything. And also, if you show him the most stupidest of the work, his reaction would be, oh, very good, very good, very good. When you show him an extraordinarily great work, he will say, you are a funny fellow. So I don't think he had ever used a word which is even bordering on the negative side. For such a man, there is no possibility of his ever getting troubled.
That's an extremely positive outlook. This is something that a lot of people have spoken about. Always had a smile on his face. Professor Balakrishnan, I also want to ask you, so while Dr. Kalam, after leaving the Rashtrapati Bhavan, he went back to teaching. He loved interacting with young children in school minds, and it's almost remarkable how he breathed his last while addressing students on stage in IIM Shillong.
That's true. Actually, he was on demand in many other countries as well. In the United States, in China, in Europe. He had taken on many assignments, and he started with the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad, and he also did a few lectures in IIT Hyderabad. So I think he was the most sought after guy on any topic that you see. Actually, what happens with him is, if you do a text analysis of his speeches, the average complex word that he will use is something anybody could understand. He's not going to use a flowery language. He's not going to use bombastic, anti-disestablishmentarianism kind of words. I think he will capture everybody. All sentences are short. There's something, one should do a stylistic analysis of the way by which he writes a speech. And the other thing is, for every 1 hour speech, he works for more than 8 hours. I think that is something phenomenal. People who invite him would have gone to sleep, but he will still be working on a speech. I've seen him. He's a symbol of what is hard work, a voracious reader. I think these kind of qualities are something which are, a million of them one has to, God has to keep on trying 1,000,000 times before he can get even one of his qualities right in any human being. So I think the probability that God will be able to produce one more Kalam is probably next to nothing.
And Professor Balakrishnan, it's interesting that you note that he used to put 8 hours of work in every 1 hour of speech that he had to make. No wonder his audiences were always held spellbound. Please stay on with us. We're also being joined by former diplomat K.C. Singh, who's with us live this afternoon. K.C. Singh, Dr. Kalam was seen as the people's president. He's someone who was loved across the country. Everyone from young children to senior citizens, to diplomats, to people who worked with him on his nuclear programs, loved to interact with him, saw him as an extremely humble, extremely warm person who anyone could easily interact with. How would you see, how were his interactions with the foreign dignitaries while he was in office? How would you see those?
Seeing him interact, I just saw the delegation I had brought from UAE of Sheikh Mohammed, who's now the Crown Prince of UAE. He engaged them, and they also wanted to question him and talk to him. They were interested because he had come from the world of science and then moved into government, and then been at the tri-junction of where government decision making, scientific decision making, and where public opinion comes in. So he knew how the three worlds functioned. So his experience was relating these three to each other. And to that extent, he did that before he became president, and he carried on doing it later. So he didn't need to change, because that was integral to the way he looked at science comprehensively. So when the Abu Dhabi delegation was there, they were interested in asking him, listening to him very carefully about how he looked at life. It was not so much politics. They didn't discuss Gulf politics with him or international diplomacy. But they were interested in his vision of development, science, where does science come in, the role of science in popular imagination and things like that. That's the limited experience that I have. And then I went to brief him on, before I went to Iran, and I found that, you know, his interest was not so much in diplomacy and politics as in the broad trends in the world, in where it was going. He would go back to his own world, which he inhabited. As I've explained, which bridge these three worlds, rather than go into complex foreign policy issues or discuss about Shia Sunni or the world. I found he was uninterested in that. He was more interested in looking at the world as a comprehensive whole, in which you take a unified, sort of more composite stand of knowledge and knowledge, diplomacy, politics. It's an entirely different approach.
Absolutely. He seems an extraordinary human being who actually did not identify differences between human beings, saw everyone as an equal. And, you know, KC Singh, this is something that we also saw reflected in his interactions with children. He didn't see them as individuals who probably couldn't understand big scientific innovations, but as young minds who needed young minds that needed to be opened up to new ideas. That's what Dr. Kalam's interactions with youngsters was all about. In fact, he also spoke about how dreams are not what you see while sleeping, but dreams are what keep you awake at night.
No, that is correct. You see, this is where you know, you separate great minds from good minds. There are lots of good scientists, or lots of even great scientists, or great politicians who may not be able to explain what they want in simple terms to common people. There are some great communicators who can do that. Taking complex ideas and explaining them in not oversimplifying them, but explaining them in terms that ordinary people can understand. Most people can make an issue very complex. If you are an expert, you can talk in algebraic or in terms of theorems which nobody understands. But somebody who can explain, say, the theory of relativity, not in terms of the equation, but in terms of how does it affect my life. I think that was his strength. He could communicate in simple terms and relate science to life and to the nation's life.
Absolutely. This is what Professor Balakrishnan, his close friend, also spoke about, how he had the ability of breaking down sentences, keeping them very simple so that all the people in the audience are able to understand what he's speaking about. KC Singh and Professor Balakrishnan, please stay on with us.